Today we're reviewing Unit 2, which is linear functions. Let's start with talking about a few key terms and ideas from this unit. The first is slope, which is also known as the rate of change. Slope is, or rate of change, is the change in y over the change in x. And change is a subtraction word, and so it is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. On a graph, this would be the vertical change over the horizontal change, which we call the rise over the run. Next up is slope-intercept form, which is y is equal to mx plus b. The order of mx and b do not matter. Just make sure that you know that the number that's with the x is the slope or the rate of change, and the number that's by itself is the starting point or the y-intercept. So let's go ahead and label those things. M stands for slope. B, my y-intercept. The y-intercept is always 0, a number, and it's on the y-axis. The slope is what we just talked about above. Point slope form is y minus y1 equal to the slope times the quantity x minus x1. So again, let's point out our slope. Let's also point out that we are subtracting x1, y1, which is a point on our line. This is actually pretty easy to graph because, again, you still have a point and a slope, which is the same type of thing as slope-intercept form. Next up is standard form, which is this. Remember, A, B, and C mean nothing. You can use standard form to easily solve for your x and y intercepts, but again, A and B are not those x and y intercepts. You have to solve for them either by putting this equation into y equals format and then putting it into slope-intercept form, or by plugging in zeros. A has to be a positive whole number, and B and C have to be integers, which are positive or negative whole numbers. None of these can be fractions or decimals. Let's talk about horizontal and vertical lines. We use the acronym HOI, VUX, which helps us remember these things. Let's start with horizontal. Actually, no, let's start with vertical. Vertical lines have a slope of undefined, that's the U, and that they share the same x. So that means that there will be x equals. So vertical lines are undefined and our x equals a number. So the equation will look like x equals a number. Next one, all horizontal lines. So now we're looking at HOI. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. You can think about slope, dude. This is 0 fun. And share the same y. You see it here on our acronym or our mnemonic device. Slope of 0, share the same y, and so they are y equals a number. So the x-axis is horizontal, which means it's going to be y equals, and the y that it always goes through is 0. Whereas the y-axis is vertical, so it's going to be x equals and the x that it always goes through is 0. On to functions. We know something is a function if one input goes to one output. This says to make a mapping relation that is not a function. So mapping usually starts like this. We put our inputs over on the left-hand side, our outputs on the right, and we're going to draw arrows between the numbers. So I'm just going to choose random numbers, 1, 2, 3. How about 4 and 5 for my outputs? I'm going to make a mapping that is not a function. So 1 is going to go to 4, 2 is going to go to 4, but 2 is also going to go to 5, and 3 is going to go to 5. The reason this is not a function is because of the 2. Because the 2 goes to 4 and 5. 2 can't go 2 different places at once. That's impossible, and so that's not a function. It's okay, however, that 1 and 2 are both going to 4. Think about it like this. I could send 2 students to the nurse at the same time, but you cannot be in the classroom and the nurse's office at the same time. Next one is a word problem that is created by making 2 points, finding the slope between them, and then writing an equation to help us solve. You have a subscription to an online magazine that allows you to view 25 articles from the magazine's archives. You are allowed an additional fee for each article after the first 25 articles. So you are charged an additional fee for each article after the first 25 articles viewed. After viewing 28 articles, you paid a total of $34.80. After viewing 30 archived articles, you paid a total of $40.70. So the first 25 are free, or if they're not free, it comes with your subscription. This is talking about what is the cost per archived article after, and so we're going to focus on after the 25. So the first point we're going to make is with 28 and $34.80. Now, 28 is 3 articles after $34.80, and so that point is going to be 3, $34.80. Now, here's how I like to remember which one goes for X and Y. If we're talking about cost in a number of things, the number of items purchased or sold is my independent variable, my X. And then my dependent variable, my money, depends on it. So the X has to determine the Y. Well, the number of articles I look at determines how much money I pay. Likewise, the amount of years determines how much something grows. And so if we're talking about like a height or something like that, something that's growing over time, that needs to be the dependent variable. So time is pretty much exclusively going to be an independent variable because it's going to determine how much you pay, how much you owe, etc., etc. So if you see time, think to yourself, that's X. I'm going to make a little note of that. Note. Time is an independent variable, IV, that's a science word, which is X. Now, there are a few exceptions to that, but in this class, that's what you're going to see. So we have our first point. Our second point, we're going to look at 30 articles that cost $40.70. So our second point, well, 30 articles is 5 after. This one's a little bit weird because of that. I won't be this mean on our final. 5 and $40.70. Again, the number of articles determines the price. So now we're going to write an equation with this. Okay. I am going to find the slope. make sure you write down the formula, so you be careful. I'm going to make this one 0.1 and this one 0.2 because then I won't have negatives. So my y2 is 4070 minus y1 is 3480 over x2 is 5, and my x value from the first point is 3. Let's go ahead and solve that out. On the top I get 590. On the bottom I have 2. So if we divide that in half, that's 295. Okay, I know it said what's the cost per archive article after the first 25 articles viewed. We just went ahead and found that. That's this number right here. It's $2.95. But I'm going to take this a step further and actually find the equation that goes with this. So this is my slope, which is my price per article. I'm going to write this equation in point slope form and then move it into, you could do this, you could put it in point slope form and then move it into slope intercept form. I'm going to put it in slope intercept form and then plug in a point to find b. So y is equal to 295 x plus b. We have x's and y's. We're going to choose one of those points. The first one looks fine to me. So for x, I'm going to put 3. For y, I'll put 3480. Okay, now let's go ahead and solve for b. I'm going to multiply by 3. 885 plus b. Now we'll subtract 885. So that would be 2595. So the equation for this line, the final equation is y is equal to 295 x plus 2595. What this means is that the subscription is $25.95 and then I pay $2.95 extra for every article that I view after the 25 articles that comes with the subscription. I know we went above and beyond on this problem. That's because this is an important one to know for your final. Hint, hint. Last thing we're going to do is sketch the graph of the line. I earlier actually tried to solve this for the x and y intercepts, and that is a very good method for standard form. Well, this is almost in standard form. For standard form equations. However, this one turned out a little bit ugly, and so I'm actually going to solve this one for slope-intercept form and then graph it from there. But don't forget that you can solve for the intercepts, and that's an equally as good solution. Remember, the x-intercept is on the x-axis, and it's where y is 0. That's something that's important to know for your final. We're going to solve this equation for y. The only thing that we have to get rid of is the 5. We're going to divide by 5 on both sides. So this is really 6/5 x minus 5, because negative 25 divided by 5 is negative 5, equals y. This is just flipped around, but it is in slope-intercept form. This tells me that I have a starting point of 0, negative 5. It's a y-intercept, so it goes on the y-axis. And a slope of 6/5, which is up 6, right 1. Right 5. Think about slope, dude. So up, starting at negative 5, we go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right 5. We go as far as we can. This graph is kind of awkward because that's as far as we can go either direction. Let's just connect our dots. Ooh, that was a sloppy line. It's not beautiful, but that'll do.